understanding, are you okay with rebuilding something new? And understanding this is a new start line. What was, is, and it's done.
I love you to death. You are my partner, and I want to be with you for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I would want to find, is it possible to rebuild that connection and move forward into a different chapter in life together? Yeah, I would want to. Could I is another thing. Hey everyone, welcome back to Thrive After Dark. This episode is going to be just a little bit different.
So our amazing content media manager, Ryan Zeller, he came across a Reddit forum that had all different snippets of people having relationship issues and asking for advice. And so he compiled a few for us to go through. We haven't read them yet. We're going to discuss them live, how we would handle them personally.
Also, before we get going, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure to give us a like because it really helps in giving us that support.
So let's get into it.
All
okay.
right.
So first one is, my partner and I have been together for 2 years. I started noticing their social media activity, including interactions with their ex-partners. I've tried explaining that this bothers me, but I seem to get nowhere and they just brush it off as if it's no big deal. Am I crazy to feel this way? What should I do?
Ooh, okay. Yeah, this one's a prickly pear for some people, you know.
It is.
Obviously creates the impression of potential divided attention, maybe leading towards infidelity, whatever it may be. There's obviously a concern on the fact that the partner is reaching out to exes and that they're engaging in that type of activity on social.
And I think it comes down for this person, it comes down to two things. Like, what is the reasoning for researching and interacting with your ex-partners? What's the reasoning? Did it end on good terms and it was mutual and you're friends and it was a good idea to part ways and all is well? Or, you know, did it end in a fiery, train wreck and now all of a sudden you're resurrecting passionate feelings?
I feel like there's so much missing information to really be able to nail down, like, here's how I feel about this. Because I'll give you a scenario. If the exes that are being reached out to and engaged with were people who left this person, and it was something that this person was left kind of chasing, then obviously that doesn't bode very well. That doesn't sound like a good scenario. It sounds like they're still chasing after all this time. And so I personally would have a problem. Like, if it was your ex that dumped you and you always had fond memories and shared amazing stories and, interactions with them, and you still speak of them fondly, and it's going to feel to me like you're still chasing something. And it's going to make me question what and why. But if it was a scenario, maybe it was, and you actually have exes in your past like this, like where you just discovered through the course of being in a relationship, hey, I think we're just better as friends and we're amazing friends and that's all we should be. I think a lot of us in life have had those types of relationships, and so it just amicably dissolves. That's less of an issue.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. We both have exes. And I am the type of person, which I have come to discover this is a little different for most people. I'm the type of person where I want to talk about past. I want to talk about your past. I want to understand the patterns that lived there. I want to
body count and all that.
Get the body count. Like, I'm not afraid of that. It's not a judgment factor for me, but it is information that helps me understand how to better navigate. Yeah. So I've even asked you, like, in years past, I've asked you, have you looked up or, checked out what so-and-so's doing? Have you ever run across it on Facebook or IG? We've had those conversations, and had you come back and been like, yeah, we DM all the time. How would I react then? I
don't think you would react well. I don't think you'd be comfortable with it.
Well, hold up. I don't think it would be a not well. I think I would be curious and like probably aggressively curious.
Aggressively curious would be right.
I'd be like, okay, so
what are you, well, what are you DMing about? What are you exchanging information about? I think when you're exchanging information, when are you exchanging these, conversations? So if it's late night, if it's like 1 a.m. and you're slipping into the bathroom and locking the door, I'm going to wonder.
It would become, why haven't you told me this before? Or things like that. And I think...
How long has this been going on?
Right. I think we're fortunate, though, because we have an extremely strong relationship, especially when it comes to trust and communication. And so I think we have a leg up on a lot of people that might find themselves in the scenario where that doesn't necessarily exist in all relationships.
Well, this is a great conversation because for a number of years in our relationship, something that really, really irked you, something that was certainly a trigger point for you, things in your past caused it, is cheating.
Right.
And even discussing cheating, even the realm of thoughts around that was very...
My blood pressure would rise.
Very
uncomfortable.
Yeah, your jaw would lock. Like you were and it wasn't a jealousy thing.
No.
It was truly the subject of cheating.
I'm probably the least jealous person you could ever come across.
And honestly, really, there were times in my life where I was like, really?
We could be at a bar and somebody come up to you and be like, "Can I buy you a drink?" I'd be like, "Will you get two?"
Yes. So it wasn't a jealousy thing, but it was definitely, you had precursors of like cheating was the holy grail of hell. Like it was like, this, you're going to hell. You're a horrible person. Why would anybody do that? Whereas my belief system around that was very like almost too logical, so non-emotional. Like, well, if you're going to cheat on me, how silly. Why didn't we just like part ways beforehand? Why even bother going through that? Now we got to get all messy and emotional about things.
Yeah.
And if we're not in it to be in it, why would we carry this on? It's just such a waste of time, effort, energy, money, all the things. Whereas you were fearful of cheating. And so let's talk about that, because obviously this person's fearful of him sparking any interest in this ex-partner or partners, it's plural. And she's tried to explain it to him that it bothers her, and he just brushes it off like it's no big deal. And she says, "Am I crazy to feel this way? What should I do?" No, you're not crazy to feel this way. Obviously, this bothers you for a reason. And whatever those reasons are, hopefully in the conversation she talked to him about it, she shared, a past partner has cheated on me. My mom and dad got divorced because someone cheated on me. Something happened that caused her to really fear this idea that someone would step out on her. And then what should you do about it? Well, I think if this is a defining line of integrity inside of you and you've expressed, this bothers me and it's very uncomfortable for me.
Draw the line.
And what you're talking about is an ultimatum. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair, but the idea that he brushes it off is not fair.
Correct. I'm not saying draw the line like either stop doing that or we're done. I'm saying draw the line to make it clear that this is a line that you are crossing. And I am not comfortable with it. It hurts me and it impacts the integrity of our relationship. It diminishes how I feel that you feel about me. There are so many layers there.
Problems,
and maybe,
those might be her problems that she could then say, I'm going to go work on those things. And in the meantime, I need complete transparency around this.
Yeah. Or maybe there's just a tweak in the way that those communications are being done and what she can be comfortable with. Or maybe it's completely innocent and I don't know why we're assuming it's the roles that we're giving, is it?
I thought she did say
the male half is the one that's reaching out to exes on social. Either way, it doesn't. Let's just assume for that case.
We did label it. There is no he, she, so we apologize.
So she's reaching out to exes, and he has a problem with it. We'll switch it. The reality is that maybe she doesn't even realize that she's crossing a line or misstepping, and she would be embarrassed or honestly hurt to know that she was hurting her partner.
Yeah.
And so you have to vocalize that to give them the opportunity to recognize it and repair it if that's what they choose to do. All right. Second one. So in the aftermath of a heartbreaking revelation, Sarah discovered that her partner, Mark, had cheated on her. We get to label this one because we got names.
Okay.
This sent shockwaves through the relationship, leaving both individuals grappling with the question of whether rebuilding trust was worth the effort. Despite the pain, Sarah and Mark decided that their connection was worth salvaging and embarked on a journey towards healing. Is this a good idea? If so, what steps can they take for effective healing and rebuilding their relationship?
Well, we are not psychiatrists or therapists. We simply have worked hard at having a healthy relationship. So we can come from experience here.
Right.
Healthy steps for healing and rebuilding their relationship. Well, one, I think it would be really important to understand what caused Mark to cheat. I think that's the most important thing without judgment, and that will be also the hardest thing. So Mark steps out to fill a void of some sort, whatever that void is. Maybe Sarah, I guess is her name. Yes. So maybe Sarah never gives him attention. Maybe she doesn't give him enough attention. But whatever the void is that Mark wanted to fill with cheating on Sarah is where I personally believe they have to start.
Yeah. And this scenario, despite it being presented as though there's a perpetrator and a victim, somebody who cheated and the person that got cheated on, there's actually, and this is, I think, what a lot of people don't realize if they find themselves in this scenario, there's work to be done by both parties.
Yeah.
And you touched on the first one, in this scenario, Sarah actually has some work to do in regard to, I'm not saying that Mark cheating was her fault. That's not in what any way I'm implying. But when Mark does the right thing and brings to that conversation the reasoning behind it, whatever it may be, no matter how valid,
it's not good or bad.
Right. She has to make a choice in that moment whether or not she's willing to correct it. Because if she's not, then the relationship is deemed to fail and it can't.
Not correct, because it's not right or wrong. Is she willing to change?
Well, and that's what I mean by correct.
Yeah, but that's not what you said.
Same.
No, it's not. It's not the same. But this is a good one because of the fear that you had of cheating and the work that we've done together to kind of really open up that subject and work on those things, right? You had things in your past that have happened that have caused this fear around that idea of cheating. And I think where we are coming up on here with Mark is like, well, what was the void, man? Like, what caused you to say, I need this fills a gap for me and I got to get it now?
Yeah, I think that this has to start with the realization by both parties on why it actually occurred in the first place, and it was a breakdown in communication. Mark wasn't brave enough to bring to the conversation and the relationship of what was missing.
Yes.
So he decided to step out, and Sarah wasn't curious enough to become or be the person that Mark needed in that moment, whether it's she didn't know or she chose not to. Maybe there were signs there. I don't know. Again, with one paragraph of information, there's too much missing information to make a clear assertion. But, in this scenario, they're asking also, is it a good idea? If so, what steps can they take?
Yes.
So let's move on to some steps. Some people, once you cross that line, you can't, it's like a piece of spaghetti. You break it, it's never going to be a whole piece of spaghetti again. Mm-hmm. That's an analogy I just made up. But for the sake of this example, but it's true. Like once you cross that line, it can't ever be uncrossed. And so Sarah has to make the decision whether or not she can ever go on and rebuild. You're not rebuilding the same thing. You can never go back. So they have to decide whether or not they're willing to rebuild a new relationship based on new sequence of events and past history together.
Yep.
Together, whether or not that makes sense.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's a curious subject that we've spent time talking about this exact subject, not because this was ever on the table for us, but because of your feelings around it. So
for context, I've had multiple long-term relationships in the past, and even back all the way back to high school, I had gotten cheated on a time or two.
Yeah. And even from your parents are divorced. And so even that, like couple splitting, brings up feelings. And we did recognize like, okay, it stems way far back in your recall of history of what you don't want to happen. And then when that happens and inevitably a split of the relationship happens, it's just kind of reopening that wound of divorce. So I think here the steps would have to be, one, I would highly suggest getting a third party involved so that you can have healthy conversations that are moderated and led by someone that truly has the desire to help you get to a healthy outcome, whatever
An unbiased
that may
opinion.
be.
Yeah.
Yes. So that would be number one. And then number two in rebuilding would be really understanding, are you okay with rebuilding something new? And understanding this is a new start line. What was, is, and it's done. And what will be is up to what you do next. That is probably the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Right?
It's going to take an overabundance of effort on both parts in order to be able to rebuild that trust before they can ever settle back into a position of normalcy. Now we're living life again together.
Yeah.
So it's going to, maybe it's, and this is just a made up example, maybe Mark has to actually, if he's going out somewhere, he has to go overboard in explaining what his plans are and where he's going to be in order to make her comfortable. Maybe she needs to overly vocalize and communicate the things that she needs to see show up in their life in order for her to be comfortable.
Or maybe you just throw monogamy out.
Everything's on the table.
Everything's on the table.
Including Mark and whoever he is with.
Maybe she comes in.
Right.
No. Okay, let's talk about it in context of us. So let's say something like that happened between you and I. Is that something you feel you could rebound to?
So I can say is with complete sincerity, I love you to death. You are my partner and I want to be with you for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I would want to find is it possible to rebuild that connection and move forward into a different chapter in life together? Yeah, I would want to. Could I is another thing.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I wish I could answer that with more Definity. I can't.
Yeah, I can. I think I can answer it with Definity. I think exactly what you just said, I believe. Mm-hmm. Is it possible to rebuild? Yes. And would I want to? Would a part of me absolutely want to? Yes. Could I? Would I? No, I would not. I would say what we had was beautiful. It's now over. I love you. I'll still love you forever. And off we go. Mm-hmm. I think once that line is crossed,
like I said, it can't ever be uncrossed.
Yeah. And I also think for me, this is for us personally. It does not apply to everybody. Everyone is different. Everything is subjective. For us personally, the amount of work we've done around communication and building a relationship and trust and overcoming an enormous amount of things in our lives. I think at that point, I would want to savor what we had,
and
rather than spending the next several years, moments, and memories rebuilding something new and tarnishing what was. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to just capture it and say, it's okay. These things do happen. You're human. I'm human. It's sad, of course, right? It would feel sad, and it would be a grieving cycle we'd both go through. But for me, I think that's probably where I would come to is I don't want to try and capture what was that I know I can't anymore and waste our time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But for Mark and Sarah, who have decided to go for it, I think effective healing does require multiple modalities. So one being an actual third party to help you, two being separate third parties or modalities in whatever way you see fit, whether that's holistic or modern medicine, to work on yourselves and really kind of forgive yourself, forgive your partner, and work through how you can become the next best version of yourself to serve each other in your common needs and desires and goals.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what, the one thing about this is the moment for Mark and Sarah to get it all out on the table.
For sure.
There is, anything that they've been holding back or trying to decide, should I share? Should
don't pussyfoot around.
This is the time.
Get it all out.
Show your cards.
Yeah.
Because it's make it or break it.
Be naked.
100%.
Naked.
That's what got them there.
Let's cheers. All right. So next. Alex discovered that their partner, Rachel, had been harboring financial secrets, including hidden debts and undisclosed spending. What should Alex do? Ooh. Ooh, money.
It sounds to me like with discretionary spending being involved, that she probably could have prevented some of this from happening.
What I would piggyback off that and just say, Alex, did you ever have an expectations conversation with your partner and your partner with you around your finances? If yes, and that was a broken, promise, a broken piece of integrity that lived between the two of you, I think you have to simply ask yourself if you're okay with that. And that if you want to repair that, what does that look like? What's required? What do you need? What does she need? And then what caused her to breach said contract with you,
right.
That verbal contract of trust.
Yeah. If it was unspoken or the finances are loosely intertwined, then probably less ground to stand on to
my guess is
complaints.
Probably miscommunication, fear of money, trauma around it to begin with. And so, what she used to do is coming up in this relationship where she just hides it and doesn't talk about it and doesn't want to and wasn't taught to. So if that's not the route you want to go and the journey you want to go on, then I'd say she's probably not the one for you, boo.
Right. All right. So the last one, Michael and Emma found themselves navigating a challenging dynamic in their relationship as they faced a significant difference in sexual desires. Michael longed for intimacy more frequently than Emma, creating a noticeable imbalance in their physical connection. I'll be here. We get vulnerable and we can speak to this in terms of reality for us.
We can.
Flashing backwards to our first episode, I experienced a significant amount of PTSD and depression for a very long time. Undiagnosed, then diagnosed, and then working on.
Yes.
And that, of course, comes with certain side effects. We ended up I remember going through those scenarios and literally feeling, like I said before, trapped. Like I was like in a bubble that my message wouldn't get out. And we also eventually were in searching for a solution to it, discovered that my testosterone was literally in the dumps. It was like 220.
Yeah, it was lower than most women.
Crazy low, which is a result of the repeated stress. So I think having been through that scenario, and just so we're clear, we've solved all that.
Yes, we have.
I'm a man again. But anyway, to be clear, having gone through that, I think communication has to happen first. Communication, discovery, and then solution seeking to see if they can find a middle ground again. They may find after doing that there's not a solution in which they can line up. And then they have to have yet another conversation on, is there a way that they can continue on, or do they desire to continue on in that relationship? If Michael, you brought up, hey, one of these people in the previous ones, maybe they're a sex addict.
Yeah.
If somebody is a sex addict, then they're looking for that intimacy 2-3 times a day. And Emma's like, hey, 2-3 times a week is turbocharged for me. That's never going to line up.
Yeah, it's not going to align.
And so
you either work on the addiction or you move on.
Or you move on, or you decide to say, hey, we can play outside the box in that area as long as we have strong communication or whatever.
Right.
There's many, many options out there. But in this scenario, communication has to happen first, and then solution seeking has to happen next.
100%. I don't know if there's much more to add to that. I think without a doubt, there just simply needs to be conversation around what's needed, what's wanted, and what's not.
Yeah.
And be really clear on that. And maybe they're not, right? I think a lot of times in relationships, when there comes these points in a relationship where you're at a head, a lot of times one partner is certain on what they want. And while the other partner may be willing to meet them there, they don't really know how to express that. They don't know how to get there. They don't know exactly what they want. And so I think if there's trust and safety applied to conversations, you can communicate your way through just about anything. And that doesn't mean at the end of the day, Michael and Emma have that and they work through the conversation that they're going to be like, oh yeah, I can do 2 or 3 times a day. We are good. Let's go. Right. It might be found that what Michael needs, Emma can't provide.
Right.
And what Emma needs and wants, Michael can't provide. And that's okay. That's all right. That's a meeting of the minds. And, it's also a moment to say, thank you, love you. moving on.
Yeah.
So with Michael and Emma and what you just talked about with PTSD, there was a distinct decision making that we had to have within our relationship of understanding you have this thing that is preventing you from being able to live your best life.
Yeah.
And the choice was, are you willing to work on that thing? And am I willing to support you?
Yeah, we both had a choice
while you work on that thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's I'm committed conversation, and I understand the things that we need to do, and I'm willing to do it, and you're willing to do it. And so here we go.
Right.
And with Michael and Emma, it might not be a thing. There might not be a thing. It might just be simply this chapter of life. Michael needs it. He needs it a little more than your average Joe.
Right.
Or maybe he just needs your average Joe. And Emma's like, I'm good once a month. And that's significantly less than what most people would want. There's no right or wrong, good or bad. It's truly just being honest with yourself and being honest with your partner.
Right.
So I think the common theme we're seeing with all of these scenarios, these 4 different scenarios, is communication. Shocker.
It's a skill that has to be worked on. Doesn't come naturally in most circumstances. Even if one partner is an over communicator, oftentimes the other one isn't, or at least they're not used to that level of communication. So you have to be intentional about it. You have to be willing, and you have to be open. You have to be open to receive whatever you're going to receive in that scenario. And for right or wrong, you can take it, you can leave it, but you have to receive it.
Yeah, I recently went to a training that was incredibly immersive. And the trainer said something that I thought was so profound for all of us looking to grow and learn. He said, many of you own businesses as you walked through this door. Many of you are successful in your own right. And that means your cup is full. You know a lot of things. You've done a lot of things right and wrong and figured it out along the way. And so you're walking in and I want you to envision a coffee cup and it's completely full. And what I'm going to ask you to do for the next 4 days, for the next 50 hours that you're going to sit in here and we are going to fire hose content at you, is I want you to empty your cup. I want you to leave everything that you know, that you've done, that you've achieved, that you've succeeded in at the door. And I want you to sit here with an empty cup and capture as much as you possibly can, that 126 bips. Like, I want you to capture as much as you possibly can. And then before you leave on this 4th day, you can empty that cup out before you leave. You don't have to take any of this with you. But while you're here, allow it to sink in. And the way he described it is, if you decide not to, in any of your communication and any of your learnings in life, anything that comes at you that's new, that's full of growth, is just going to bounce off that cup. You won't be willing to even hear it. You won't be willing to even learn it. And so in these scenarios, come to the table with your partner with an empty cup. Anything you thought you knew, anything that you wanted to know or imply with your partner, just leave it at the door. Come with an empty cup, willing to learn where they're coming from, hear them fully, and then share with them vulnerably about what you need, what you want, and where you're looking to go.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like if Emma was just that empty vessel waiting to be filled up, Michael wouldn't have a problem.
Bada boom.
So here's what we'd love from you. You know, we gave you 4 scenarios that we just kind of digested through and gave you our take. We want to hear your take. Give us your thoughts and opinions around the 4 scenarios we just gave and throw them in the comments.
Yeah. And we want to hear if you've got any stories of your own, similar or totally different, that you want to hear a different perspective on, whether it's right, wrong, or good for you. Send us an email, DM. We'll keep it completely anonymous. This is out here for us to all stand in some truth and get real and raw together.
So thank you so much for joining us today, and we can't wait to see you on the next one.
Cheers.